Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, and welcome to Pakistan Studies lecture series. We are in these lecture series is focusing on the O-level patterns and O-levels contents. Today we are going to deal with the Pakistan-Iran relations, and we will be sticking to the timeline of 1947 to 1999. To start with, we are looking at the bilateral relations from this bar graph, and this bar graph is apparently self-explanatory. For instance, if we look at these bars rising above, so this is what we call as the scale, and the bars rising higher will actually mean the relations have been pretty good, and the bars going lower actually reflect that the relations have been complicated, have seen ups and downs, have seen problems. So, what defines this up and down in the relationship will be subject to discussion today. But these bars definitely, due to technicalities, can be amended if improvements can be suggested into it. To start with, we can look at, let's start from the decade of 1940s, and where we can see that Iran was the first country to recognize Pakistan in 1947 when Pakistan and India were partitioned after the British Empire, what we say, withdrew from British Empire came to an end, and two independent countries, Pakistan and India, came into existence. So the partition took place, and Iran was the first country to recognize Pakistan. Then Pakistan and Iran also saw the beginning of diplomatic interaction. Diplomatic offices were established. So the two countries, uh, besides, also shared regional security architecture views. So they shared views or perspectives on the regional security architectures, especially when it came to the role of major powers into the region, since we know that Pakistan was created at times when the Cold War was still in progress. So we see that the two countries were definitely firm to deny, especially the communists, any space into this region, which we will especially see in the 50s. But as far as Pakistan is concerned, we can initially say that during the early years, 1947 to 51, we can observe a kind of positive neutrality in Pakistan. So let's at least to some extent hands off from this approach for Pakistan, and because this can be seen in the 50s actually. So this is the 1950s, a very crucial era in Pakistan-Iran relations. So what we see in this, since the 1948 war with India is over, and we are into the 50s where Iran begins to support Pakistan, though also through 1948 during the war with India. 1950s was a very crucial era. Iran supported Pakistan's stance in Kashmir. It supported the United Nations initiatives that there should be a kind of plebiscite in Kashmir. So Pakistan and Iran also joined CENTO. We call it initial Baghdad Pact, later on called CENTO. So this is also a confirmation of what we said in the 1940s, that the two countries, Pakistan and Iran, shared a views on regional security system or what should be the dispensation. So the two countries joined CENTO, and the both countries also remained the participants of the Colombo Aid Plan. So Colombo Aid Plan, we are all aware how the major powers actually sponsored this Colombo Aid Plan for the developing world, including Pakistan and Iran. In the 1960s, we are seeing that the bar is rising still higher, and the relations saw a great apex. Iran was providing Pakistan aid and oil on easy installments. Easy installments, and during the 1965 war, Iran definitely had a greater role in supporting Pakistan militarily and politically. Um, what happens is actually there are some reports, though they are not yet confirmed, that While the world was imposing arms embargo on Pakistan, Iran was buying, aircrafts and supplying to Pakistan's air force. But this has not been officially confirmed or even denied. So this, for the sake of exam purposes, can be advised that it should be avoided. But in informally, this discourse exists. So during 1965, Iran definitely had a greater role. It also offered Pakistan to refuel its aircraft from Iran, and many analysts, Pakistan, and even strategic thinkers, they believe that Iran offered Pakistan a kind of strategic linkage, strategic support to Pakistan during the 1965 war. So Iran continued to reaffirm its support to the Kashmir cause, and at the same times we saw that there was RCD established during this era of 1960s, during the Ayub Khan era, Regional Cooperation Development and Organization of three countries of Asia, Pakistan, Iran, and Turkey, who believed that the key to regional development was the regional interaction. So the three countries with this hope started RCD, but this RCD wasn't so much a kind of success story because of a number of economic and political challenges facing the region. So, anyways, but that led to a beginning of the trade between these countries, though at a limited level so far. 1970s, we see that relations are still seemingly good, but though there is a small low observed in the relationship, relations remained good during this era, and well, there were some issues we saw, and that issue was the rise or emergence of Jandullah, a Sunni organization which Iran believed was a threat to the uh, Baloch areas of Iran, since the Iran holds a large population of the Baloch people on border with Pakistan. So Jandullah was accused of carrying out strikes as are supporting those insurgents fighting against the Iranian state, are willing to form a separate state. And though same was true about Pakistan, sometimes blaming Iran for the same, that the Iranians were to some extent supporting the Baloch insurgents, though it may not be officially, but Pakistan also accused Iran of the use of Iranian territory for the same purpose. So 1979 was a very critical era for Iran because Iran saw the rise of a Shia dispensation, a Shia regime after Islamic Revolution of 1979 under Imam Khomeini. So after this 1979 revolution, Pakistan was the first country to recognize the new Iranian regime. That was a communication, a kind of message to the Iranian government that Pakistan had no problems with what kind of regime the Iran had. So the two countries still had good relations. But there was a turning point. We can see it is in the 1980s, there was a massive low in the relationship, and there were a number of challenges that were now beginning to hurt the bilateral relationship. And most key challenge that Pakistan and Iran were confronting was because of this growing major power competition and the presence of major powers in the region. We see in the 1980s, the Russians had invaded Afghanistan, and Pakistan had again drawn closer to Americans. Though in 1970s, we know that because of Mr. Bhutto leadership factor and a number of other reasons, Pakistan started a nuclear program. Pakistan-American relations weren't really good. But during 1980s, because America needed Pakistan after the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, we see Pakistan was a frontline ally of America. So American presence in this region was seen, and this was not really something Iranians were comfortable with because Iran had just seen this revolution, and since that revolution, while the pro American government of Shah of Iran was overthrown, the new regime was extremely anti American. There was diplomatic rifts, so many issues going on between the two regimes, and Pakistan and Iranians were to some extent uncomfortable during this time. So American presence in the region was seen as a kind of something not good or not a good sign for Iran. At the same time, we see that Afghan jihad was going on, Pakistan was supporting, the entire world was supporting, especially those who shared the American view or the democratic view, who believed that the Russian expansion should be contained. So Pakistan was supporting Mujahideens, And while though was Iran was uneasy with the situation, and why it was uneasy was quite simple because the Mujahideen factor Afghanistan had largely kind of Sunni population. The Sunni Mujahideens getting influence in Afghanistan was considered a threat for Iranians, especially as after the revolution we say that the Shia influence or Shia regime was there, and this was kind of afraid. There was a kind of fear running deep into the Tehran. So in the 1980s, we are seeing that RCD was revived because in 70s it had been stalled, and in 1980s it was revived, and we came up with an organization called Economic Cooperation Organization. This time with some better workout, better blueprint, better plans to economically interact with each other and to connect the region. So Pakistan's growing closeness with Saudi Arabia during the same time was also problematic and hurting the bilateral relationship. So finally, 1990s, the last decade under discussion for the same topic, we see that relations have improved quite significantly, and there were a number of reasons. Number one, because the Afghan jihad was over and American presence in the region was obviously not there. And you see, we also know that during the 1990s, Pakistan's relations with America were also quite down because Pakistan was no longer serving American interests after the Afghan jihad was over. America no longer needed Pakistan. Relations soared quite significantly. So American presence from the region was over. Afghan jihad was over, and all of those, I mean, most of the important irritants in the bilateral relationship were over. Then we see a rise in the trade between Pakistan and Iran in the same time. Though Jandula issues still remain there, and Iran still continued to support Pakistan's cause, but to some extent it also went gradually closer to India as part of its initiative to increase its trade. This is all from us. So overall, we can see that the relationship between Pakistan and Iran during the 1940s, through all those decades of 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, and ending in the 90s, we see there is little instability. Mostly, we have seen very encouraging relationship between the Pakistani and Iranian governments. So, though there are still some differences, but overall the relationship have been quite comfortable. This is all. For more videos, follow this channel. We will be posting lots of more material on this relevant contents for all levels. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.